Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle. Thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com, as well as the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel. We're closing out the October horror run of the Class of 1999 series with one of the biggest box office surprises of the year, as well as one that cast a long shadow over the horror genre over the years, as well as in the way independent cinema operates in general. It is the Blair Witch Project, and joining me to discuss the film is a writer and director. He directed 2050, which we talked about earlier this year. He also helped me go through Spike Lee's Summer of Sam for the Class of 1999 series. I'm pleased to be joined once again by Princeton Holt. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hey, how's it going, Brian?
Pretty good.
Awesome, man.
It's funny because of the fact that horror. This was a really strange year at the box office. I don't know if when the last time you checked Box Office Mojo or something like that to see what like the top earners from that year were. But it was a really wide variety of movies. It wasn't like we have now where it's primarily family movies and action blockbusters. It's a pretty wide net with Fan Menace leading the way, and then The Sixth Sense was actually second at the domestic box office, which is stunning.
They were second to Blair Witch?
They were second to Fan Menace for the year.
Oh, okay.
Blair Witch did do very well, and I remember first hearing about the film coming out of Sundance because it really was something that had a big impact on the people who watched it at Sundance. And I know that Artisan, who distributed the movie, bought it at Sundance, and then this was probably the first real example of a film utilizing the internet to sell the movie.
It is.
In a really profound way, because one of the things they did when they set up the website, they set up teaser trailers, they made the Blair Witch Project seem like it was real. Like it was a documentary that just went horribly wrong. And
right.
I think by the time I saw it that summer, I knew that it obviously wasn't. It was just a gimmick, but you still kind of feel that in the film. When did you first see Blair Witch Project?
I was caught up in the hype like everybody else. I was going to college. I was going to college in Massachusetts, and I remember my tight buddy, my one of my closest friends, and his wife had she knew that we were talking about this movie the whole time, so she watched the kids, and he and I went out. If I'm not mistaken, I think we might have been stupid enough to hit a bong or something. You know how college is, and then I think we drove out there, and he was talking tough, and I was just there to see what this movie as an independent filmmaker, it's like I got to see what all the hype was. I didn't expect for us to be so freaked out.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we drove back in the woods. And I think we got lost and we were freaking out. So we had an experience, man. And the movie, I think it freaked him out a little bit more than it freaked me out, but it still freaked me out.
Yeah. And
I enjoyed it, but I was lucky enough to see it on a big screen, and it was a packed theater.
Oh yeah, and I was the same way because I remember it went limited. It was in limited. It started out in limited release. It opened in Atlanta the same week as Eyes Wide Shut. So I saw Eyes Wide Shut on Friday.
Jesus. Oh my God.
And then Monday, I was taking summer classes. I was in college as well. I was taking summer classes at Georgia State. And after my classes on Monday, I went to the Terra 4 Theater in Buckhead to go see it. That was the only place it was. I had seen plenty of movies at Terra, and it's a small, nice little theater. It's one of the more iconic theaters in Atlanta's history. I don't think I've ever seen it as busy as it was the opening that Monday of Blair Witch Project.
The Monday.
I think they had on 2 screens, and it was in one. I saw it in one of the largest theaters in there, which holds about, I don't know, 400 or so. And I was 5 rows from the front of the screen. It's one of the few times I've been that close watching a movie. I usually try to be there in enough time to, get somewhere
in the
middle. But I was like 5 rows from the front watching the Blair Witch Project, and it freaked me out. Like it really, and being that close and having that energy in the theater, God. There's nothing like it.
What was the reception? Was when you were watching it, were people reacting to the jump scare in unison?
Yeah, it's interesting because of the fact that Terra is the Terra is basically an art house theater. So it gets a different clientele than, regular multiplexes. But it was definitely a different clientele for Blair Witch because A, it's a horror movie, B, it was the only one that was the only theater showing it at the time. And I mean, if I remember correctly, people were reacting to the jump scares and the just the it's claustrophobic to a certain extent. The movie is, and it's a great credit to the filmmakers and everybody who made it because of the fact that they made this movie. It's basically a Lost in the Woods movie, and it feels, and it's very oppressive in the way that it puts you right in there. The documentary form, which now we consider quote unquote found footage, is really a great way of telling this story. It really was the best way to tell this story.
Correct. Absolutely. And for $60,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how much the movie cost. And I can't remember the format. Did they shoot that in 35? Or was this one of the first sort of videotape films?
I want to say it was videotape and Super 8. I can't remember what was.
I think you're right.
I can't remember what it was filmed on because I don't think it was 35 millimeter. But
I think that was a part of the story. The folklore also for filmmakers at that time. I think that was a part of the folklore was that it. Let me see. I think part of the folklore was that it was. Is the format is shot on? I'll check right quickly.
Yeah.
I don't want to. But $60,000.
Yep.
That's phenomenal, and it grossed 140 in the U.S. Yes. Which I can now see you telling me that if Blair Witch was further down in the box office, I can see that because 140 was gradual.
Yeah.
And then the 250 was worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see, it taking a while to hit that mark.
Oh yeah, and the fact that the movie basically made over 100 million outside the U.S. is actually kind of remarkable when you consider the type of movie it is, and the fact that horror doesn't necessarily do that. I mean, we have seen more horror movies doing well outside of the U.S., but it feels
not like that.
Not in that way.
Yeah. And not like that.
and for a long time, it was the most successful independent film of all time until I think Passion of the Christ a few years later.
So they shot, like, you're right. They used a high 8.
Okay.
But then they shot it on 16 black and white. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the black and white scenes, the color scenes were, I believe, shot on. I want to say they used the 8 and they switched back and forth between high 8 and the 16 with black. They used the 16 millimeter for black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So for 60, that's a lot. That is unreal, right? To shoot a documentary, a fake documentary on film, and then have all that, have whatever went into it, and it only cost them $60,000, and that's outside of food, sound, lighting, travel, and for them to do that for $60,000 is remarkable, because if they would have shot this on digital video, they could have essentially made Blair Witch for basically nothing.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's got to be. I don't know why that's not the. It is. It's very highly influential film for horror filmmakers, especially because of course we'll get into this naturally soon, but it spawned so many similar titles.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, basically, it's funny because of the fact that, Paranormal Activity. I think a lot of people point to Paranormal Activity as the film that sort of kickstarted the modern idea of found footage, but it's like Blair Witch was there a decade before.
First. Yeah.
And,
oh yeah.
And the thing is, it's funny because both films essentially built word of mouth out of the ways that they were shown to people and the way they marketed it. And it's funny that both films kind of did that. Blair Witch Project I think Blair Witch is still probably one of the best uses of the internet to market a film.
Listen, I think it's all right. So you could, definitely. Paranormal Activity is Blair Witch 2.0.
Yeah.
In every sense of it's franchised. It was made by independent filmmakers, and Hollywood came and stepped in and made it huge. They did a slow burn. It is a textbook, and no other found footage film has performed anywhere as close to those two.
Oh no,
there's been a ton of them.
Yeah,
there's been a ton of them, but none of them were franchised. None of them really had that impact. And Paranormal I think it's dead. It's dead now because the audience can't stand it.
Yeah.
From what I see, I can't speak to it. Are you a horror fan?
It's not my first love of genre, but the fact of the matter is, over the years I've gotten more and more into horror, and I've gotten more and more of an appreciation for the different ways people bend the genre and twist the genre to tell different types of stories and stuff. Nominally, yes, I am a horror fan. I came to it late, though.
Go ahead.
I came to it late.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I asked that because if you're, diehard horror fans are, this is a touchy film for them. This is paranormal. They like snub their nose at it. So that's more proof that I'm not a real horror fan, because I thought Blair Witch was phenomenal. For my money, Blair Witch is by far the best one. Blair Witch is better than all of them.
Yeah.
Blair Witch, to me, is a fantastic film, and I'll tell you why. Forget the bells and whistles and what it makes you feel like. I mean, they did their job. The woods are a character,
Yes.
And I guess successful. It's hard to make a successful found footage film if you're only waiting for the demon or the monster or whatever is coming to get you. Whereas the woods are this wide open space, and I guess that's how we felt claustrophobic. I was sitting like you, close to the screen with my friend, The woods are the character. That's the main character, and it's frightening because you're in the middle of the woods. I didn't see there was no interest. There's no interest in the exit scene, right? So when you're looking at it, you're just stuck there.
Yeah.
When we get there, we're just there, and we're just there the whole time, and it's dark, and it's on top of that, it's black and white. Oh my God, man! It's just you're stuck out there, and then they're going crazy. But the thing that nobody talks about Blair Witch is the performances.
Yeah. Well, and and to a certain extent, I kind of understand that because of the fact that it's like it feels they're too natural to a certain extent. It's like it doesn't feel like performances. It feels like people in a situation where they're lost in the woods and they react accordingly. And then I think the thing is this is one of those movies where there was a very direct backlash to the film. And I think part of it is because of the fact that it's like you had the scene where Heather's character is sobbing in the tent. A year later, that was parodied in the Blair Witch and Scary Movie. So it became it to a certain. It didn't take long for the movie to become a joke to people, and that's it. And it's unfortunate because you're right. The performances are really good, and I know Heather Donahue's character performance was one of the ones that I really responded to because you see the character break down as the movie progresses because at first she's in control, she's confident, she knows what she's doing. The longer they're in the woods, you start to see that veneer come apart. You start to see that come apart, and that's one of the things that's so interesting about. But because of the fact, I think to a certain extent, it's almost like they did too good of a job of making it look like a documentary, and I think that's part of why the performances that's another part of why the performances didn't really get the respect that they really should have.
Right. Those were, but if you compare it to the other found footage films, it's not. It doesn't. I mean, nothing stands close. The Paranormal People, nothing. You don't see. I mean, I can't remember. These are performances. Not just her. Just not just Donahue, but Josh.
Yeah.
Guy playing Josh just loses his fucking mind.
Mm-hmm.
He's. I mean, so the first thing I guess we can attribute to that is the fact that there was no script.
Yes.
I think that helps. When I think about it, I was like, wow, that would be an interesting way to make a movie. I've made a couple of features that had no script, and as one as a producer, one as a director producer.
Yeah.
But never did I think to do it in a genre. So I'm imagining what it would be like to just scare the shit out of your actors and then not. And then not tell them what's going to happen and have them react,
Right.
So that helps the performances, and I mean that's almost every time I've seen people use the no script technique. A lot of times those performances are enhanced by that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the Force basically being a character in the movie. It is the fourth character in the movie. And it's the most important one because of the fact that I love movies. I love the idea of movies set in desolate places where there's no one around to help you, where there's and as somebody who was a Boy Scout and who went camping and stuff like that, the allure of that as a terrifying location is kind of enhanced, and I like the idea of, and I mean I never really got scared camping, but at the same time, the idea of camping can be extremely scary, and it's because of the fact that the woods, you're in nature. So anything can happen. And I like the fact that it's interesting because
Yeah,
of the
you
fact
bet.
that you look at you would think that they would come across uh, different animals and stuff like that in a movie like this. It's actually
Yeah.
it's probably one of the more unrealistic aspects of this movie is that they don't really come across
No
any
animals.
animals. But at the same time, that's what makes it so creepy. And
Yeah, where
it
the animals at?
and it adds to the fact that well maybe there's some truth to these stories.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, because wasn't the what part of the folklore is that they didn't have is something about the animals? Did they ever reference it or no?
I think there was something about hunters
A
early
cat
on in
or
the
something?
movie
Okay.
who had seen her, but yeah, other than that, I don't remember there being too much of a reference.
All right,
So,
so they didn't reference it at all.
but
Yep,
but still,
definitely a character.
yeah, but yeah, the forest is such. I mean, if you have a filmmaker, if you're a filmmaker who shoots in who sets in the forest, it's like I think you're and you don't utilize just how alone and desolate and kind of intimidating the forest can be as a location. I
Oh,
I I think you're doing something wrong. And I mean, it's like one of my favorite recent horror movies is The Witch. And it's because of the
okay.
fact that Robert Eggers has these characters basically on the outskirts of society, and they're like they went out into they went out into a more desolate, a more alone place as far as the woods and stuff like that, and so they're isolated from places from anybody.
Right.
Any horror that happens there, it will take it will take them some time to get somebody to possibly help them. And that's one of the better uses of it, I think. I mean, if there was a Netflix movie a couple years ago, The Ritual, that's set in the woods, and it's like, oh, this is interesting, but I didn't think it took advantage of it in quite the same way a movie like Blair Witch did.
No, no. And you see a lot less. Less is more, as
Yeah,
Hitchcock used to say. But that's still enough, and you just never know where things are coming from. And whenever you get some good jump scares in the middle of the woods in the dark,
mm-hmm.
you have the audience. And this is before we got over. I think they also benefited from. I was reading somewhere. They also they benefited from the fact that this is before everything is a whole video now. This
Yeah,
is before the age of YouTube, where everything is found footage,
yeah,
right? And so we're used to that aesthetic now of following somebody around with a camera. People are going viral by, just sort of aiming their camera at whatever they're doing and
yeah.
following themselves or following other things or other people. This is before that influx. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you feel like you're looking at a documentary. Whereas now you got to come, if you're to pull out, it'd be very difficult to pull that off now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's why Paranormal Activity, to their credit, had no choice but to find other creative ways to do it. And what they put together a film, at least the sequel,
Yeah,
was with security cameras,
yeah.
which is a natural progression, because what else are you going to do with the shaky cam? Because these two films have already hit it out the park,
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, and you're absolutely right about Paranormal Activity because of the fact that yeah, it was there. Once we have a world where I mean, I have a camera with me at all times. It's called my
All right.
phone, so I can if I want to, I can videotape myself walking around. And I mean, this is funny because of the fact that like you know, cell phones in this case were still in their infancy. And I
Right.
mean, they weren't as ubiquitous as they would be in a couple of years. So a couple of years later, you couldn't necessarily do the Blair Witch the same way. I mean, we saw that I don't know, did you ever see the reboot that came out a few years ago?
Blair Witch?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Okay. It's an interesting update of the movie. It there are things about it that aren't as good, but I think it takes some of the challenges of doing a movie like the Blair Witch Project in a modern era where GPS exists, where cell phones are with us at all times and stuff like that. It takes it into an interesting direction, and the way you do that type of story is interesting. It's not as successful as the Blair Witch Project, but it's certainly better than the sequel that was rushed out a year later.
Right. Okay. We can. What do you think of the marketing in Blair Witch? I think that it's safe to say it's because of the fact that you did not have this wasn't wrapping buses and putting posters up or anything like that.
Right.
This is using something that hadn't even been fully utilized yet. This is using the internet, and this is in the dial-up era.
Yeah.
Okay. This is no. This is no Wi-Fi. No. I mean, this was no. There was no speed. This is dial-up area.
Right.
Time to be able to pull this off. I think it's one of the greatest marketed films of all time.
I would agree with that.
If not ever. And
yeah.
the length and if other people, if you look back on what other people who have tried this and not have been and weren't successful did, it's the more you believe, the better the marketing of it was. Mm-hmm. So you had to believe these people were I mean, they went the extra step, which is at Sundance, the posters had the actors as missing or deceased.
Yeah, yeah. And
then they found a way. Imagine not taking your actors on your press promo tour.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with a lot of actors. I couldn't imagine talking them to, hey, listen, you're going to play dead, and you're going to keep. And you can't get away with that these days in the cell phone, Instagram era anyway.
Oh God, no.
So you got to give them props for that. They took it all the way. They even said that they had the worst. I mean, they took it so far that they did not reveal the actors. They made them like it was like they were dead. Okay, yeah. That's going hardcore. Mm-hmm. And then there's the whole thing about is it real, and then using the internet to sort of create this whole backstory. Just genius, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
very little
and the thing is, it's like I wasn't on the internet so much to where the internet marketing was something that I'd heard about it, but I wasn't necessarily like looking at it, and I wasn't necessarily into it quite as much. But no, mm-hmm. I would say I think you're right. It is probably one of the, if not the best marketed movie of all time. And it goes back to when it goes back to, I'm having the image of the trailer for Psycho.
Okay.
In my head, where it's like Alfred Hitchcock's basically taking you along the set of the Bates Motel, and he's showing you different clues and different things to keep an eye out for in the movie. And then the genius thing that when that movie came out, you were like, basically theaters had to say, okay, if you're late to this movie, you're not getting into this movie. Mm. And the reason is because of the fact that if you go in too late, you miss
the first kill.
You miss the most significant piece of information you're going to get in that movie, which is the death of Janet Leigh.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that, I mean, yeah, the marketing, I mean, the marketing is comparable to that when it comes to Blair Witch. And yeah, you're right. It's like the idea that they kept it up, the idea that they kept up that idea that this was all real as much as they did. I forgot about the fact that they didn't take the actors on
the promo
tour. And yeah. I didn't think about that. And it's like, that makes sense because of the fact that how else are you going to do it it's one of those things where it's a film where the film itself is the star, and really the filmmakers were the stars more than the actors. The actors were essentially props for them.
Yeah, yeah, they could. Yeah, it's like who. Interesting. Like I don't know. I'd be so curious to. Wait. So who goes on with the movie if the people? Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So the filmmakers were the film I don't. Did the actors actually shoot that footage?
What?
I think they did. Didn't the actors shoot the footage? That they actually shot the footage in the movie.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, and the film and the.
And then they leave them. I think they left them or something. And then they would come in and they would drop stuff on the site and mess with them and then go back. So
you're absolutely right.
And then, so the editors put it together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
The editors and the producers put it together.
That.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's insane. So they basically made the damn movie. And now they can't come out on the promo tour because of the marketing. That's awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that. You're absolutely right, though. And it's one of those things where it was such a. There's so many different little strokes of genius in the way that this movie the way this movie was made, and. The fact that there's not really a soundtrack, the fact that there's not really a score to it.
Nope.
Like that's I'm somebody who I absolutely love movie soundtracks. I love film scores. I actually own this soundtrack. And I love that the soundtrack actually tied into that idea of they're real because of the fact that they called it Joshua's Mix, and there's no music here, and there doesn't need to be, and that's one of the things that makes it so effective because of the fact that when music can be certainly effective in telling a story, not using music when done properly is even more
effective. It's just as effective. You
don't have that emotional blueprint to how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes, like as you know this, I'm a music guy in terms of film. That's what attracted me to film is the use of. I was attracted to film by the marriage of music and image.
Yeah,
that's really what I responded to. And so I'm my favorite filmmakers are obviously the guys who do that, but I also love many that don't. And I think you're right. And you're right. A lot of times, music is used to sort of inform the audience what to feel. And I'm not going to lie, it works for me all the damn time. Okay, Forrest Gump music, everything works on me. I get emotional every time.
Mm-hmm.
Castaway is the worst. They don't even use a lot of music, but when they do, you're like bawling your ears, you're bawling your eyes out. You know what I'm saying? Because when he, especially when he, that score they use when he finally escapes off the island and he looks up at what he just overcome, what he overcame.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that gets you every time. But not using music is a ballsy choice. And you're right, they did not use music here. And the thing about found footage films is, it's supposed to be bare bones. It's supposed to be just stripped down, and what you're supposedly watching is real, and it really felt like we were watching something that really happened.
Yeah, and I feel like there probably have been some found footage movies that have used score, but I don't think like any of them really do, and it's partially because they're trying to go for the effect of being real and being documentaries. But at the same time, I mean, I can't help but think like there's so many just not good ones beyond Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, and it's not necessarily because of the fact that they're doing found footage. It's because they one of the more disappointing ones I think I've ever personally seen, and it's because I'm fascinated by the subject, is Chernobyl Diaries, which was a studio film. It was a studio produced movie. And I'm fascinated by Chernobyl. I've always been fascinated by Chernobyl. And like I couldn't help but feel like they completely it like they basically tried to turn it into a monster movie, and they did so many of the tricks that you see in Blair Witch Project, and it's like you had the perfect opportunity to do like one of the great found footage movies by saying it in one of the most horrific man-made disasters in history, and yet you completely just turned it into a monster movie. And it's like, really? It doesn't help that the characters are annoying. It doesn't help that like the filmmaking style is so familiar at that point. But it's, it's like, figure out the type of movie that you're dealing with when you do something like that.
Right. Yeah, I didn't see the movie I didn't see what you're referencing. But yeah, I mean, listen, man, it's hard to. It's hard. You mentioned annoying characters. I didn't find which. That's another thing it has going for it. It does not have annoying characters.
No.
I think my wife and I, I'm sorry to keep comparing it to Paranormal, but
no.
But Paranormal my wife and I saw the first one because we wanted to see what all the hype was about.
Right.
And she's the biggest scaredy cat. She could barely sit through Get Out.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Get Out was too much for her. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just setting it up. Get Out is like a B thriller, just standard jump scare thriller,
Yeah.
It's nothing like the scariest thing. It was like a thriller,
Mm-hmm.
But she was, I mean, it's like thriller, but it freaked her out. So I'm just setting the stage. But we watched the first one, and I mean, we were like, that's what all the hype about. I mean, they're kind of annoying, and we found the characters annoying. And then when they came, and then we said, let's watch the second one, because at this time they had already made the sequel. Second one was so freaky to us because of the technique of using the found footage.
Yeah.
They didn't do shaky footage. They did security cam footage.
Yeah.
And we were so scared, and the jump scares were so taking us off that we laid in bed and talked through the entire movie to offset the fear. Okay.
Yeah.
That was the only way to get through it because we didn't want to be blindsided. But again, the second one, I guess, got to us better because the two main characters were not the focus.
Yeah.
Those are two original main characters. They were annoying as hell to us. But by the second one, I think they focused on another couple.
Yeah.
More, and they were not annoying.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like the third one, which I think was like the last decent one in the series.
That was amazing.
It was it was them as kids. It was the two sisters, because the main female characters in the first two movies are sisters, and so in the third one you see them as kids dealing with it. And that one is like you said about the second one, is another example of them using different ideas and different things beyond the handheld video camera and stuff like that to set up the terror. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The third one, Brian, is like this is the best that you can do with found footage. We're going to put out every possible thing. We're going to stick a camera on the fan.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking about, because that is yes.
That the scene with the girl running up the steps when she says, "You promise," and she stands on the ledge and you see nothing next to her. She turns next to her. She goes, "You promise?" Okay. And she takes a leap off of the banister, and a couple seconds later, you see her run back upstairs. Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever she said, you promised, caught her.
Yeah.
Okay. So that I was like, holy shit! I could not believe what I was looking at. So they took it to the next level, and this is how many years? You have 2 decades to figure it out. And Blair Witch, I think Blair Witch, if you remember in the end, towards the tell me if you remember this, towards the big climax, there's a lot of shuffling when they start running.
Yeah.
And for a minute, you don't know what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And when Heather first appears in white with that cap, I don't know what I'm looking at, because that's the first time we see her fully in that outfit.
Yes.
And the camera just sort of swipes by her in a way, and she like runs in front of the camera, and it's shaky. And the first time you see her, like, whoa, what's that? Oh, that's Heather. We must be running towards her, and then you don't see anything, and it gets dark. Filmmakers these days you couldn't do that nowadays, because people would be so busy on trying. I mean, I don't think it's something that can really be replicated a lot. That's just the problem. I think you can only have a couple versions of Blair Witch, and that's it. Like you can't keep doing that, because it's unique. It's very unique. And that's the thing. They get, like you said, they get a bad rap, and there's backlash. It's backlash, but there should be. I think the backlash comes from the parody. And if it was as a standalone piece of work, I think it would have been much higher respect, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like the scene that it's funny because of the fact that like we were talking about how basically the directors would come out, they would leave stuff for him and mess with him and stuff like that, and that's basically part of how they made the movie. The scene where they hear rustling and people, messing with the tent and stuff like that. It's the second or third time it happens in the movie. I can't remember. And then they leave. Mm-hmm. They leave the tent and they take the cameras with them. And then, like, Heather screams out, it's like, "Oh my God, what the fuck is that? Oh my God, what is that?" And
because they're screaming.
And even though you can't see anything, you swear you probably see something, because they feel like because by that point it's hard not to be convinced that something is in fact happening with them.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the technique of, they just screw with them, and he said that they just didn't, the Josh, he said, "Hey man, they screw with us, and they made us crazy, and they would come in and out, and we didn't know. We were told that that's what's going to happen." And I think the filmmakers did a great job at preparing the filmmakers ahead of time. Like, this is going to be an experience. This is going to be, this is what we're doing, and they agreed to it. And look how it paid off for them.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they framed this as the making of a documentary about the Blair Witch is important, because of the fact that it gives them justification to have the cameras and the sound equipment and all of that, and B, it gives you that great opening before they even get into the woods where they're doing the interviews in town, and you have all of this different exposition. You see people who believe it, people who don't believe it, people like who are kind of a bit loopy about things, and it's just a great way of getting exposition. It's a great way of setting the stage, and there's so many things that are established in that opening few minutes before they get into the woods and they're in town that you see later.
Right.
And
right. It's the climax, the third act climax is the payoff for everything that we've seen prior. So I agree, that's some very original. We hear the build up, we get the folklore, we get everything we can about the story set up, and by a third act, it's time to enter.
Yeah.
and see for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's I think that's one of the things that distinguishes Blair Witch Project from any other found footage movie, and that includes Paranormal Activity, where the film's primary purpose, first and foremost, is to tell you a story. With found footage, it's not, with any movie, with any really great movie, it's not just a matter of point and shoot and we're gonna take you on this, we're gonna put you in this situation with the actors, and that's not necessarily, or you're gonna witness this situation with the actors. They're telling you a story, and that opening is, and you're hearing the story about the Blair Witch, and you're also hearing the story about the kids who are studying the Blair Witch. So it's two stories in one, and that, I think, is the thing that there's this is the best found footage movie of all time.
That's right. I mean, absolutely. Now, I'm hearing a lot of comparisons to the last broadcast.
Yes.
I didn't see the last broadcast, and I'm surprised that after, I'm usually one, when I see a groundbreaking film, the nerd in me likes to dig up the film that inspired it. I discovered The French New Wave because of my obsession with Scorsese and Tarantino.
Right.
And that's how I discovered The French New Wave.
Yeah.
That gave me the motivation to be like, wow, what got him into it, what got him here, and I fell in love with The French New Wave through that. But I'm surprised I didn't do that with the last broadcast, because I keep hearing that as being a main reference. Did you see that?
I was trying to. I've not seen it. I was trying to remember what the name of the movie was, because I do remember articles after Blair Witch came out talking about the last broadcast, how that was a movie that really did found footage first, and it did a few years before that. And I think there was a bit of a controversy during it because of I think because of the fact that the makers of the last broadcast kind of felt like they were being ripped off or something, or not given credit for the type of storytelling that the Blair Witch filmmakers basically did so well with. But yeah, I haven't seen the last broadcast either.
It is online for free. It is on YouTube for free. So for our listeners, it is on YouTube. The last broadcast is on YouTube for free, I believe, in its entirety, from what I see. But we can look for ourselves and compare it. I'd also want to encourage. One of the things I love to do on these is always give film lovers a new gem to watch if they haven't seen it, something obscure. I think last podcast when you and I did Summer Sam, I might have I don't know if it was Summer Sam. It wasn't Summer Sam. I think it was when we were discussing 2050, I believe. I recommended to you a movie called Coherence that was shot similar.
Yes.
That was shot similar to Blair Witch. 5 days in an apartment, no script, just clues, scary sort of subject matter, and they got strong performances and great film out of that in that technique. Well, this time, I'm going to encourage your listeners to check out a movie, and yourself, check out a movie called The Upper. The Upper. I think the original title is The Upper Footage. This is a film that had buzz. This is on a lower scale than the Paranormals of the world. The Upper Footage is the first time a very ultra no budget movie got the kind of buzz it did, strictly for the marketing.
Okay.
And this kid Justin, the filmmaker, he went through a ton of shit trying to do this movie. It's called The Upper. It's being advertised as horror, but it's not horror. It's more like a thriller.
Okay.
It's like a mystery thriller. And they did the same thing. They had people believing it was real. And to the point, it was so crazy, and it took off so much that the filmmaker had to go on one of the horror blogs in the state and write a letter and say, guys, I have to tell you, this isn't real. Okay. It's not real. But what happened is he filmed the a bunch of teen, I guess, upper teenage kids from the upper echelon in New York City. So they were kind of the elite kids having a party, and there was an overdose, and of one of the kids, and they freaked out, and they have to decide what to do with the body. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys.
All right.
So that was so controversial. They had to pixelate one of the main characters' face. Okay, that's how much controversy it was. So I have seen this effective this marketing campaign work.
Yeah.
And I believe that if this is going to happen again, you have to go all out. You have to do what you have to try to do what Blair Witch did. You have to go for it. You have to try to do what Upper did, because we do want folklore. We do want something that appears to be real, and it's very tough to do because the internet is it's just exposes everything. So it's tough to pull off in this day and age unless you happen to find actors who. Oh, you said you don't have a Facebook? You don't have a Twitter? You don't have Instagram?
Oh, I can't imagine how I can't imagine how doing something like this would work now with social media being the way it is.
It can't unless you just literally say, I am only going to hire people without social media.
Right.
The 5% of you in this room or in this city that don't have it, I'm going to consider you. So those could be, or you can probably use it to your advantage, and then the person never had, or you could do something interesting where they did have a social. I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm giving away a total one here, so I'm not going to. You know where I'm headed, though.
Yeah.
But my point is, Blair Witch is the best in a lot of things. I think, like you said, best found footage ever. I think we can agree to that. Best, in my opinion, if not the best marketed film, one of the best marketed films of all time. And you can make a case. You can say it's a bunch of blockbusters like Star Wars is better, Jaws is better. That's low hanging fruit. But again, these guys had TV and radio and magazines and newspapers, and the other guys were the first to use a new medium and that cost nothing. To do what they did. So I would call this one, in my opinion, the best one that I've ever heard of.
I will say, okay, this may sound like I'm blowing smoke up your ass for a little bit, but I will say I've thoroughly enjoyed the 2050 social media and the way that links to articles about sex robots and artificial intelligence and stuff like that have been shared through the Facebook page and Twitter account and stuff like that. I really kind of love that because it essentially shows in that movie, and I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it in the commentary that I'm doing for 2050. I love that it basically shows that the world of 2050 is not as far away as it seems.
Right.
And that's one of the things I really like about it. And I can't help but think of that when we're talking about the way that they marketed Blair Witch Project, the idea that it's real. And I think it's more, it feels like the way I feel like to a certain extent studios don't really understand, I think, They don't really think outside of a particular box when it comes to promoting their movies. And I think that's where independent movies do probably have a leg up because of the fact that they have people. You need to have much more of an impact in order to have an impact if you're an independent studio. And so in order to do that, you have to come up with clever ways of tying something into the how do I sell this movie? How do I sell the idea of this movie? And I think that's where like studios like Artisan, who distributed Blair Witch Project, they do have to get a lot of credit because of the fact that not only did they do it brilliantly, they also did it. They also found a way to change the paradigm, really, of how movies
To
are
market.
marketed.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people have tried to mimic it.
Yeah.
Did you see Apollo 18? The
No,
Miramax
I
movie?
did not. I did not see it, but yeah,
Another movie I somehow convinced my wife to go with me to see, and she was pissed off at me again. You know, because it freaked her out, of course. Apollo 18 is a found footage space movie.
yes, yeah. I
I
remember. I remember that hook, but I also heard it wasn't very good. So, I think that's why I ended up avoiding it.
Nobody is going to get. I think Paranormal Activity, the first one, might have gotten good reviews because
Yeah,
this generation, again, this is going to happen in another 20 years. So
yeah,
you can come. What happens is you just wait for one generation to get older, and then the new ones come in, and the new ones feel like that's the first time they're seeing it. And you've seen this happen over and over again. You've seen this happen where sometimes it's 10 years, sometimes it's 20 years. You can reintroduce an idea. You can reintroduce a theme, and it is perceived as the first of its kind. Okay.
yeah.
And so we've seen Blair Witch, and then seeing it 20 years later, it's easy to be like, oh, this is just a Blair Witch knockoff. But if you imagine these kids, I remember going on the internet, looking at the comments under the trailer, and every comment was some kid saying, is this real? Is this real?
Yeah,
Is this a real thing? And my mouth is hanging open. I'm like, oh my God. Not only do these kids, they haven't seen anything like this, it's working on them, number one. And number two, I can tell by the comments, they want to believe that this is real.
right.
Right? They want to be convinced that this is real. And that's when you're just like, oh my goodness, man. So Apollo 18 did similar. It's the same thing. It's basically found footage in space.
Yeah,
And like you said, I don't remember being very good. But they did the same thing. They said this is a real thing. This is from government files. They set it up to. I believe every word.
yeah,
and in the end, they were like, I mean, I didn't believe that. Like, I believed it for the movie. I'm like, wow, that sounds good. The government, they have the files, blah blah blah. It's a nice setup.
mm-hmm.
And then at the end, they said, for more information on this project, go to this site immediately. And of course, my dumb ass goes right home to go log in. And it said, this site has been seized by the FBI. And so I'm like, I told my wife, she's like, what does it say? I said, it's either crashed or the FBI seized it. I don't know which one. So anyway, I didn't know what was going on. So that's a genius thing right there. That's a great way to do it, and that's what people have to. I think that filmmakers have to remember the marketing. You have to have the right movie for that kind of marketing. And I appreciate what you said about 2050. I can't take credit for that. That's a marketing consultant, and it's a movie that we keep we're hearing from people of all walks of life, people even that work in Mirror. I heard somebody who's married to someone who works marketing at Paramount, praised the marketing in 2050. So imagine that. So I was like, whoa, that's great. You have to have the kind of product that makes the marketing work.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you can't put out the movie about the guy who breaks up with his long lost girl from high school and then try to get an interesting campaign. It's very difficult. If you have something like a Blair Witch that's found footage, you can definitely piece together a creepy story. Yeah. And I hope filmmakers go forward with continuing to do new things with this genre, this specific subgenre of horror movies, and especially as it relates to marketing, because we want to believe audiences want to believe these things are real.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
It's funny because of the fact that as you were talking, I completely I finally remembered another successful found footage movie that we haven't even talked about yet, because it feels like it's a mixture of two different genres. found footage being one, and the monster movie being other, and that movie is Cloverfield.
Oh, Cloverfield.
And I remember the teaser being in front of the first Transformers movie.
That shit was amazing.
And it's like, what the hell is this movie? And
yes,
you didn't know. And then by the time it came out, it was like, oh, I've got to see this movie. And the thing is, the weird thing about it is the Cloverfield series, which is a series now, is still kind of doing that because they had the Cloverfield Paradox last year on Netflix, and they started dropping commercials during the Super Bowl, or it was 2 years ago, I think, the Super Bowl, but they were dropping commercials during the Super Bowl, and it's like, oh, by the way, this movie's coming out after the game. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, the Cloverfield movies are kind of, some of them are kind of iffy quality wise, but it's going back to that idea of utilizing the internet and social media as marketing tools in ways that we don't necessarily expect.
Right.
And that was, and it's one of those things where it's like, you're right. Very few, if any, have really done it as well as Blair Witch Project did. I mean, a couple I was thinking about were AI, the Spielberg film, and then iRobot. They because of the nature of their stories with regards to robotics and stuff like that, they tried to do something somewhat sort of like, trying to describe the best way of putting it. I mean, it wasn't typical marketing for big genre movies, and with iRobot, they sort of base it on Asimov's 3 laws, and I remember some of the web marketing and the posters saying 3 laws safe and stuff like that, sort of giving you an idea of just sort of hinting at the ideas of within the movie more than promoting the movie itself.
Oh, wow.
And
interesting.
So, I mean,
So this is the online campaign?
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, and those were a few years after Blair Witch. But to bring it back to Blair Witch for a little bit, one of the things I wrote down when I took notes on the movie after watching it for the podcast is when I first saw the stories that the townspeople tell and the way that those are presented, one of the things I thought about was, and it's actually got a little bit of interesting synchronicity with the Blair Witch, is I couldn't help but think of the Paradise Lost documentaries, especially the first one about the West Memphis 3.
I did not see that.
Oh, if you have access, see, I think they're still on. If you have access to HBO, they should be, or HBO Now or something like that. I highly recommend them.
Okay.
But yeah, the West Memphis 3 was very famous murder story in the early 90s, and basically 3 teens who were just different from the society that they lived in were accused of murdering 3 children, and people got riled up because they attributed to Satan worship and stuff like that. Joe Berlinger was one of the co-directors on it, and he actually is the director of the Blair Witch sequel that came out the year later from Blair Witch Project. But yeah, if you haven't seen the Paradise Lost documentaries, there ended up being 3 of them, and they basically charted the entire story of the West Memphis 3. They should be on HBO Now or HBO Go's streaming service. they're absolutely fascinating documentaries. But
Okay.
yeah, I couldn't help but think about that, and because of the fact that it's such an old, it's a very small town, rural area, and
Hmm.
you basically are hearing these characters in Blair Witch talk about like myths, and they're talking about they're are talking about scary things in the context of how they view the world and how they view society. And it's like that's one of the things that was kind of interesting to me rewatching it, is that I couldn't help but think of those documentaries. But
Oh, that's when you couldn't help but think about those documentaries when you were watching Blair Witch.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And it, if you watch especially the first one, which is the most comprehensive about the case in general, I think you'll kind of see where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those. This is such the way this movie is built and the way it's structured, given the way it was filmed, is it's such a testament to the filmmakers, the actors that made it, that it's as successful as it is. I really do think this movie, even when you know the fact that this is in fact a narrative, it's not a documentary, it's not something that actually happened,
A
it still holds
mockumentary.
up really well. And the reason
Right.
it holds up
Absolutely.
really well was because it's more than just, oh, we sent actors with camera, we're having actors with cameras go into some place. It's not what it
Right.
is. It's not what it starts out. It starts out as a documentary about the fictional Blair Witch, and then it becomes a documentary. It kind of becomes a documentary about these characters getting lost in the woods. And the fact
Right.
that it makes that switch is so
Hmm.
effortless, and the way it's just such a wonderful piece of storytelling trickery. It's just with a flip of a switch, it just changes from one thing to another, and that's one of the reasons
Agreed.
that the Blair Witch holds up as well as it does.
One of the most underrated films of all time, regardless of genre.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's like it's one of those where it's like I think it's more underrated now. I think when it came out, people lost their shit for it.
Right.
But now that it's but over the years, with the backlash of found footage and all of that, and the parodies that came afterwards, it's like to a certain extent it did become underrated. And so now
I,
it's like it holds up very well.
in terms of, I think not in terms of, I'm not saying overrated in terms of buzz, because you're right.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. It was the talk of everything. But I don't think the filmmaking gets enough credit. And as we're talking now,
Yeah. I
I
would
think,
agree with that. I would agree
okay,
with that because
yeah,
it's a movie that it's very simple. It's a very simple idea. It's a very simple execution
execution, right.
that
Which is hard. Which is
it's
hard to
very
do simple.
hard. um, but yeah, it's a slow burn that it's really I love slow burn horror. I love movies that just gradually build up and build up and build up, and it's like, and that's because of the fact that you get to know the characters, you get to know the situation they're in, and this movie really, and so by the time things really start to happen in the movie, you really get the impression that these characters are fucked. Like they're
Yeah.
done. Like they're never getting out of there. It's like you
They,
really
at some point, they realize they're not coming out of there.
yeah.
and you're watching as an audience. Guess what? We're not let out of there either. So,
Yeah,
you know,
and that's why
it's fascinating.
And that's why that scene in the tent with Heather saying, "I'm so sorry this has happened. I'm responsible for all of it." You know, that was
Yeah,
parodied so hilariously, I'll admit, in Scary
yeah,
Movie, is so effective because of the fact that
right.
it's like, even if you're not really a fan of the characters at the beginning, you empathize with them by the time they get to the end.
Right.
And that's the most
Right.
important thing.
And then speaking of the end, Brian, that ending perhaps is people's. I'm going to just assume that that's the part that people have the most issues with. I don't know what they were expecting.
Yeah, because I mean, like we've talked about, it's completely telegraphed in the what people are saying at the beginning of the movie before they go into the woods.
There's kids. They mentioned kids. They mentioned getting in a corner.
Yeah,
Facing the, oh my God. So that's a payoff. But I guess people were, you wanted something more, and I think it's fitting with the movie that you got less.
Oh yeah, and I mean that was kind of the problem with the reboot a couple years ago, where it's like it kind of went for a little bit more of the seen than the unseen, and I still like the reboot, but it's not quite as effective, and that ending is something where it's like it you know exactly where it's going to go, even if you don't necessarily realize until it gets there.
Right.
I would be.
Yeah. And when you enter that creepy ass house.
Yeah. Which why wouldn't you go in there? I mean, let's be clear. Why wouldn't you go in there? It's a lovely house.
For the record, I'm not going in there, Brian.
Oh no,
I don't give a
neither
shit
am
how
I.
long I've been up.
But the thing is, it's like you do understand why the characters go in there, because it's the first sign of civilization they've seen in a few days.
Correct.
And they also are lured in there because they hear Josh. And that's one of the things that I really kind of love, because of the fact that
is freaky.
they use like the characters in the yelling in the distance and stuff like that, and you expect to see Josh at some point in that scene, and you never do.
Right.
So it makes you wonder. It's like, so what is going on here? And
yeah, what happened to Josh?
Yeah. Because I mean,
I didn't think about that.
Because it looks like they go through the entire house. So where was he?
Yeah, what happened to Josh?
But I do.
Yeah, and that. Yeah, so you were not disappointed. You're not one of those people who claims to be disappointed with the way it ended.
No, I wasn't, and I think being as close up in the theater kind of helped that, because of the fact that it's one of those things where because again they basically tell you how it's going to end, and it was just the experience of watching that movie for the first time, and I think I saw it a few times in theaters.
Okay.
Because I watch movies over and over more regularly then, because I didn't have quite as many responsibilities. But the fact is, it's like you see where that movie's going, and I like the way that it ends, because of the fact that it circles back to everything that was established in the beginning of the movie, and it ultimately that's why this movie really deserves the credit it should get, is that the fact that they told a story, and it wasn't just, oh, we're gonna have a bunch of kids going to the woods, we're gonna act like scary things happen to them. That's it. That wasn't it for this movie, and I think it's a tribute to them that they made it as effective as they did.
Correct. I agree. Camera is hit after we see Josh in the corner. That was so weird to see him doing that.
No, it was Mike.
And then
it was Mike in the corner.
Not Mike, not Josh. It was Mike.
Yeah, it was Mike
with the hat on the lumberjack sort of sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And head face down, and then boom,
Mm-hmm.
camera down in the movie.
Yeah.
I think it was effective. And then me and my boy drove home after that because we're like, oh boy, where are we? We're in the woods.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget that night.
Yeah. And I definitely. I mean, this was in the afternoon when I saw it, and it's like it still freaked me the hell out. I couldn't help but think I couldn't think of anything else after watching it. It's like on the way home, or on the way. No, it was on the way home because I was at home for the summer. I would be remiss if a friend of mine brought this up, and I have to bring it up. So evidently, especially that year, hunting seasons were kind of ruined for a lot of people because people were going into the woods with cameras making their own movies.
Oh my God.
And so it's like hunters are like, oh, I don't want to accidentally shoot anybody. And so, but yeah, they made my friend Marv wanted to make sure that I put that little plug in on on this.
Thank you, Marv. That's nothing more annoying than you trying to hunt and people in there trying to make their version of Blair Witch. Filmmakers all over the country.
Yeah, exactly.
trying to make their 150 million. Oh boy.
Princeton, I thank you very much for joining me today on to discuss the Blair Witch, and we covered a lot of ground, and I mean part of it is because of the fact that from a narrative standpoint there isn't a whole lot to say about the Blair Witch Project, and so much of the discussion is about things like the marketing and stuff like that.
The marketing.
But it really does boil down to the experience of the Blair Witch Project, and the experience at the time of the Blair Witch Project is something that kind of gets forgotten to a certain extent, and it helps that the movie remains as effective as it is.
It does. You can make like we said earlier, it may be one of those things that's 80%, it's 20% movie and 80% marketing. And that has a place in movies because we both left scared. So, I mean, even if you were to take the marketing out of it, right? Yeah. The marketing perhaps got our interest, like you said, and perhaps got us in the theater, but I also think that the marketing had us curious if what we were going to watch had a tinge of reality.
Yeah,
and we were prepared for that when we walked in.
Mm-hmm.
So again, 80% marketing, and I hope young filmmakers really study what they did and study what some of the other references that we gave on other films. That use marketing as well, and also don't forget the upper footage. It's only available on Vimeo.
Okay,
you're not going to find the upper footage. It's not on iTunes. It's not on Amazon. It's only available for stream rental on Vimeo. Okay.
Okay.
So, whether you like the movie or not, really dig up the backstory. It's unbelievable. Entertainment Tonight got involved, and this kid, unknown, did this with marketing online, and so it reminded me of Blair Witch.
Okay. Yeah, definitely check that out. But yeah, thank you for joining me today. And thank you for joining me this year to talk about 1999. And we covered some 1999 films when we were talking about 2050. So this was just such a year for movies.
I was thinking, man, you got to do 99. Maybe you had me questioning, like, is this perhaps
you can make an argument if I know that it probably won't check out, but you can make an argument for it being the greatest year until of course you bring up something from the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's the golden years. The 70s was the golden age, so that's probably going to beat it. But
right.
I'd be curious I know that you in the future are going to think of more years, and I definitely want to see which year that you pick, and we can compare to this year in the future.
Okay.
So thanks for having me on again, man. It's always fun talking to you, and thanks for having me.
No problem. I'd like to thank Princeton for joining me today, and check out our episode on Summer of Sam, as well as my interviews with him and Brian Ackley on Alienated and 2050, which is Princeton's most recent movie. I'm actually going to be doing an audio commentary for 2050 that's going to be appearing on the film's DVD release, which is currently slated for January 14th, 2020. And that's it for the October horror month of the Sonic Cinema Podcast Class of 1999 series. I hope you enjoyed it. Coming up is going to be a fast and furious 2 months. It's going to be extremely busy, and I hope we get a chance to... I'm looking forward to the lineup because it includes Paul Thomas Anderson, Anthony Minghella, Chris Smith, Doug Lyman, James Mangold, Hayao Miyazaki, Oliver Stone, Harold Ramis. It's going to be an amazing lineup. David Lynch, and this is where we are really going to see a lot of big powerhouses. I mean, we've already seen a ton for the class of 1999. We're going to see a lot of the big ones come up, and it's going to be an interesting set of discussions. I'm really looking forward to it. That's it for me. Check me out on patreon.com/SonicCinema to join the discussion and to get exclusive content. I recently posted something on comparing the two versions of it. I also have different ideas bouncing around my head as far as revisiting the Star Wars films for the release of The Rise of Skywalker that I'm looking to do. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. This is Brian Scuttle, and thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com.